Hello, everybody, and welcome. In this episode here on Starship Adventures, we're going to be talking about something that's kind of been a little thorn in my side for a long time, and that's the ARRL. My name's Ian, and I'm here with Joseph, and we're both amateur radio operators, and we both have been that way for a while now, a few years, and we've been just had to do a video today to talk to you guys about the ARRL because it's the American Radio Relay League. They've been around for probably about 100 years, and they are supposedly the authority in all things ham radio. And like with a lot of things, they have outgrown their usefulness, and we're going to discuss that in a bunch of different parts tonight. Joseph, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. And yeah, the ARRL, I know you're a big fan.
Oh, a big fan. Totally. No, I got issues with him. As a young ham coming into the hobby and everything, and I'm not quite as young as I used to be. I got my license when I was 12. But during that time, I've gotten to see what the ARRL is about, and I don't think very highly of them. I think they're kind of useless.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for our opinions on that, and we're going to go through them tonight. And we're not, I want to qualify right up front here. We're not saying that it's evil. We're not saying that the devil's running it and they're doing it like the Antichrist, okay, or anything like that. All we're saying is it's outlived its usefulness. And we're going to explain why.
Yeah.
If you disagree with us, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? If you do disagree fundamentally with what we're about to tell you about the ARRL, then what I suggest is do some research. Look at the stuff we've looked at, read the things we've read, and then make an informed opinion on what you think is the status.
And what you think could be done to help and fix it. That's the other thing.
That's the thing. I would like to think that these people want to fix the ARRL, but it seems like every day it gets worse and worse. And we're still following, and we're not going to be discussing this much in this broadcast, but we're still looking at 2 weeks worth of outage on Logbook of the World. And we're going to have another video on that I'll link in this description. So check that out. Logbook of the World down 2 weeks as of the taping of this show. So Joseph, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, look, the ARRL is obviously stuck in the past, and I think their security measures are stuck in the past as well. And I think that what's happened to them now is very, very bad. I think they're going to have a really hard time recovering, and it's going to be a very bad mark on their history, so to speak. And I think they're not going to recover from this. That's kind of a hot take, I know, but I think this is really going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because they're already having issues, and this just, I think this is it right here. That's just my opinion, though.
And we will be discussing this in depth in another video that will be released a few days after this one. So watch out for that because that's a really hot discussion right now, is the Logbook of the World being down for 2 weeks. And we'll get to that in a different video. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is the ARRL. You would think that a group like the ARRL would want as many other groups out there to be a part of the group as possible. You would think that getting all these groups together would be a wonderful thing. But what you find is the ARRL is not interested in taking on new groups or teams. I tried to call the ARRL for months. I called section leaders. I even sent emails to all the leaders at their headquarters and never got a response back. And then months and months and months later, when I finally did get a response back, I told the guy I was no longer interested. It had taken months to call me back. I'm not interested. I know, Joseph, you and I both had small teams going there, and they were just not interested in us at all.
No, they have pretty interesting requirements as far as getting affiliated. And at the end of the day, the only thing you get with an affiliation is just that word, an affiliation. The ARRL does have, or used to have, small little funding type things where you could apply for grants for various projects. But as I understand it now, they've stopped doing all of that, and it's pretty much just dead. So the whole concept of becoming affiliated with the ARRL is really only something you do if you like them a lot and feel there's some value in it. But when they don't even reply to your requests, it really is just kind of pointless to go after it. And again, with their rules and things you have to do, like if you want to become a affiliated club, you have to have a certain number of members who are members of the ARRL itself, which is another thing that's kind of annoying, because it's like you're forcing your members, if they're not already, you're going to try and force them to buy this, not even a product really, just pay this money so that your club can, again, have a name on there. It's like the Better Business Bureau, it's like you stick a sticker on your door and people are supposed to say, oh, that means they know what they're doing. But at the end of the day, you just pay them for it.
Other than a few link throughs from their website being an official team or something like that.
Well, yeah, and then their website navigating to that point where those links would even be useful is next to impossible. No one ever uses that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a little while. Their website's pretty bad. It doesn't really, well, some of it doesn't work at all, but some of it's just not that practical. They always seem to be a little behind the 8 ball on that, and I find the information on a Google search to be a lot better. And one last thing on new groups joining. I was very surprised when I did finally get the packet of information. There was affidavits in there. There was things that needed to be notarized. There was certificates of this and proof of that. And they required incorporation status, and they required all these. They require a lot more than the FCC requires for a club license. It's actually quite ridiculous. And I looked at this packet and I'm like, this is nuts. This is so that one club can join another club. And it looks more like I'm doing a government contract is what it looks more like.
A lot of what the ARRL does is very reminiscent of a government project.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen everything they put out. Even their website is stark and governmenty.
It looks almost like the EULA or the ULS.
Yeah, it looks like a county website in Windows XP days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But anyway, that's literally, if I could describe their site, that's what it reminds me of, my county website back in the Windows XP days. Okay. So anyway, that's when if you've got a little group and you want to join ARRL and there's already a big group with say 250 people in it in town, they're not going to call you back. They don't care. They only want big groups. They only want the ones that have been in there for a while. I want to talk about the dues in the magazines because this is something. Yeah, this is a big topic. They have stopped printing the magazines unless you pay extra. And so here's what happened. In 1 year, their dues went from $50 to $59. And the magazine went from being provided by your dues to $25 extra for the one. And if you want the other, $25 extra for the other. And so your entire membership would cost you over, I don't know, $109, I guess, would be the total membership with the magazines. That's ridiculous when you think about you used to get most of that for nothing, for just $50 or $40, $30 back in the day. Now we're at $59 and you no longer get a printed magazine. And I will admit the printed magazines, I did get them for 1 year, and they are simply just a form of advertising. I mean, there's 4 or 5 articles in there that you can easily find any of that information on Google. And then there's just ads in the magazine. So I have a stack of, I think, 12 of them from my 1 year I was in the ARRL. I kept them, but I would never use them for anything. I mean, why would you go looking up for information in a magazine when we've got the internet?
And the worst part is a magazine does not contain information. My biggest complaint with their magazines, and this also applies to, I have a ham radio outlet magazine over here that they sent me, I guess because I bought something there. And I think this is kind of the same with all magazines, but in the ham radio world, it's really bad because they don't include any kind of price range for any of the products.
Right.
So these advertisements, you have pages and pages of radios with not even a vague idea of what they're going to cost. So at the end of the day, you're still going to spend the same amount of time online looking this stuff up as you would with the magazine.
Right.
So it's not even good, browsing material because you can't have any frame of reference for what this stuff costs. Now, that's kind of the same with all magazines, but I think it especially applies with radios, where I understand the market changes, prices change, but you don't even get a rough estimate.
Right.
Which is something that I think ham radio equipment desperately needs, considering the prices of some of the stuff in there, especially the new stuff. Very expensive.
Well, everything's about price, and in a bad economy, it's even more about price. And so that is very important. The reason they don't do the prices in there, I know why, because these magazines hang around for years, and they're looking for later some vicarious benefit from those old ads that are still in magazines that are sitting underneath desks. I don't know if there's anything there, to be honest with you.
I highly doubt it.
Anyway, and so $59.
And let's also talk about the fact that a magazine, in principle, is a very outdated thing at this point in 2024.
Yes.
The people who would read the magazines regularly would probably be the real old timers who just do it because they've always done it. And there's value there. If they enjoy reading it, more power to them. That's great. But charging $25 a year for that printed magazine is just, it's a ripoff, I think.
Yeah.
I think it should be included, but should be turned off by default. If they're trying to save money. Everything's becoming more expensive. I get it. They got to figure out something to deal with the economy. It should still be included, but maybe just a little checkbox in your profile that's turned off by default. If you want the magazine, you could have it. But otherwise, the already small numbers of people who get their memberships are not going to go and look for that magazine and turn it on, I think.
I agree.
And that's how they should have handled it. That would be the most honorable way to handle the situation, would be to do that.
I personally believe that they should step up into the future and just get rid of those magazines, because that's not the way people are getting their information. It's like they just spent 2 years and a whole bucket of money building a learning center website that's now been down for 2 weeks. And that learning center website literally they built this thing and put it out there. And then once it was released, the members realized, well, it's done, but we have to populate it. It was literally just like an empty block, and you had to start to populate it with things, and it's become quite a process. And what you find is everything that they have on their website, you can find quicker, easier, and more up to date on Google.
And better, yeah.
And YouTube.
YouTube.
I have never once went to the ARRL website and watched a video on how to do something in ham radio, but I've watched 1,000 videos on how to do things on ham radio. They waited way too long. They should have had a huge YouTube presence 10 years ago, back when they were just doing shorts on there. But they let it slip by, and now all of a sudden today they're trying in the ninth inning to try to make that happen. And
they have a YouTube channel, but their YouTube channel is extremely generic. Every thumbnail looks the same. You can tell the people that are running it have no skills whatsoever in content creation.
Not only no skills, but they're being paid, and they have no love for it either.
Well, that's the other thing. It's they have no passion for it, and you can tell that in the video. The people making the videos, there might be good information there, but the way it's presented is, somebody standing in front of a blank wall talking to the camera. That's what most of the videos are like. Or you have, if it's a computer-related video, it's somebody with a very low-quality microphone who's never used a computer before trying to guide you on a piece of software. It's really poor quality stuff. And what they really need to be doing is collaborating with content creators who have done it and are good at it. And they need to be collaborating to have them come on and make videos that can all be consolidated to one channel. That would be a way to do it, not this old, outdated, frankly boring and uninviting looking channel that just is not going to attract anybody. I mean, it looks like an archive from a corporate Zoom meeting.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. And I've even seen some of these videos that's done there where it's like, there's dirty laundry in the background, and the guy talking says "and between every single sentence, and it just gets to be a little annoying. And you're like, I can go to YouTube, and there's some great guys on there on YouTube and not just this channel. I mean, other channels that are a lot bigger than me that are great at this. I don't know why anybody would go to the ARRL to find a video.
And nobody does. They do not
No.
get very many subscribers or views at all.
Let's talk about their membership numbers. This is an interesting thing. Their membership numbers have steadily dropped over the last 20 years. The percentage of amateur radio operators that are members of the ARRL is steadily dropping. Each year, there's approximately 30,000 new FCC amateur radio licenses issued in the United States of America. Of those 30,000, about 3,000 of these will join the ARRL. So they're only enticing about 10%. And what gets me is most people get their license through an ARRL supported VE team. And yet we're still only turning 10% into this and 20% into the local club. Doesn't sound like we're doing this right, does it? I tried to get our local team here to allow me to come down on VE nights and talk to people after they pass and try to get them interested in right away into something, you know, and get them going right away. And they resisted that. They didn't want to do that. And I'm like, you got a club that sponsors another club that sponsors these tests. And these people come to see you to take the test. You have them trapped in the building and you can't turn more than 10%. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a fact. You've got their undivided attention. If you're a good salesman, you should get that $59 before they leave. And that's why I'm saying the ARRL is, they miss the mark every time. They've got their own VE people giving these tests, yet they can only turn 10%. So 10% join the ARRL. And you want to know what? On the next year, only 600 of them will re-up. Those numbers are crazy. And what that ends up being after that, less and less people. And here's the problem. They're losing 600 members a year to old age.
Probably more than that.
And so they're literally losing the 600 people they keep from that first year to the second year is lost in fatalities, is lost in deaths. That being said, they're at a net zero for new members.
Or a net negative. I believe it's a net negative.
I think you're right. We're in a slide. They're definitely in a slide right now. And
they've been in it for a while too. This is not new news. They've been in a decline for probably about 10 years now, maybe longer. Now it's gotten steeper lately, but it went from being a positive climb to a negative decline about 10 years ago, I believe.
It did. About 20 years ago, there was a dip. And then it came back up again. They had a new president for a little while. Things were looking up. But then about 12 years ago or so, they started a trend line that is literally sinking right now. And these numbers I'm giving you are 3 years old. It's probably a lot worse than this right now. So a lot worse. We mentioned earlier, I just want to bring it up one more time, the study resources they have online. They spend a lot of people's money on these websites and these resources, and Logbook of the World and the Learning Center and their I think they've got a big blog that everybody uses too, that everybody's always bitching on. All these different things that they offer they're all just old and outdated, and they just don't get you anywhere. The next thing I want to bring up is ARRL. They just won't adapt to change. And I think that's probably the biggest criticism you can give to the ARRL is that they're still doing things like 30 or 40 years ago. You know, I'll give you an example of this. We have the National Traffic System, the NTS. On their patch, on the actual patch that they wear on their arm, if they were so inclined, it has the word innovation. They're still doing the National Traffic System the exact same way they were doing it in 1950. It's the same thing. They're still passing traffic. They're still using the same methods, the same techniques. Yet they've got the word innovation right on their patch. And that shows you the disconnect between what they say and what they do. The National Traffic System it goes on every day here in this county, and they pass 3 messages every day that are just the most worthless thing you've ever heard. And I tried to get involved with it for a while, but like everything else, they refused to train anybody. I asked everybody that was involved down here, train me. I sent money to ARRL for message pads. It took them 3 months to send me yellow message pads. By the time they sent them to me, I had already decided not to do it. So the national traffic system is an area where there could be innovation there. There could be something there worth something, but there's just not. The next thing, preppers. You would think the ARRL would have been all over these preppers. Here's a whole new group of ham radio operators out there. They won't do anything with it. They don't care. They won't put nothing up about preppers. They won't support preppers. They don't care, because that's not the original game plan. And they're so old-fashioned and so stuck on their ways. They don't care about preppers. They just don't care about preppers. And so that's another example of something that they should go towards. I'll give you another example. GMRS. There is a community of GMRS people out there now. Thousands and thousands of people who are legally transmitting on UHF GMRS frequencies. And these people out there, they're all making repeaters, and they're getting together, and they're doing things, and they're making clubs even. The ARRL should be on that like flies on a turd. They hate GMRS, just like they hate 17 meters. They hate it, they hate it, they hate it. And so anytime you bring up GMRS, they don't want to hear it. And so what you end up with is, again, another missed opportunity where they could have been supporting the GMRS community. They could have been helping them. Any thoughts on that, Joseph?
No, pretty much what you just said. They don't. I mean, it is kind of out of their ballpark. GMRS is not amateur radio, and if they tried to get into that, they could do it. They could make it work. But people might think it was a little weird that amateur radio. The other thing is that GMRS people are going to GMRS often because they were so disillusioned by
That's very
AM
true.
radio.
That's
so if
very
the ARRL tried to stick their fingers into that, I could see that becoming kind of, I wouldn't say it would be unsuccessful. I just think it would not show amazing success, because at the end of the day, what does the ARRL do?
I can't really tell.
That's the thing. No one can really answer that. So until they start doing something, it used to be that they were advocating for radio regulations, and they would, push, and they would lobby, and they do this stuff to try and get band space, and kind of just act as a sort of overarching principle of guiding ham radio, keeping it safe from people who want to take it away, that kind of thing. But in recent years, they have stopped that as well. So they don't really do anything. So that kind of brings me back to the question of what could they do to improve it? They'd have to start doing something with that money that we give them for our memberships. And I don't know what they could do at this point in time that would really benefit either GMRS or ham radio.
No, I completely agree. I was just throwing that out there as another missed opportunity, just like
it is a missed opportunity. And the prepper thing is very real, because you ask any prepper, have you ever heard of the ARRL? And they say no. Because the people who get into ham radio, the ARRL could do a lot for preppers, I think, as far as information goes. Guides, pits, they could have some kind of list of equipment you should assemble, these like checklists. They could, that's just going off the top of my head. There's all kind of stuff they could do for preppers that would make their journey into radio a much more informed one, rather than just, buying a UV5R and getting your technician license. But they haven't said a peep about that whole side of radio. Yep. Not a peep about it.
Not a thing.
So nobody cares.
Yeah, and we've already talked about Logbook of the World. I don't want to get back into that again. We do have another video coming out later about that. I want to mention just for a few minutes, and I don't want to beat this up, and I also don't want to discuss it politically, okay? But I think it's important to note that the ARRL, the moment COVID happened, they went into some kind of panic mode. And they shut down every hamfest for 2 or 3 years. It was bad. They weren't sanctioning anybody doing anything outside the shack. And I feel that their response, I feel a lot of the response was way overboard, but their response to it was literally as crazy as you could get. And even in places like Florida, where we had already been open for a year and we had realized, we're okay, we can be open and it's okay, they still were pressuring our clubs and groups and teams down here to not have any events. And I just hate that much stifling was done.
They did try to compensate in probably one of their most laughable attempts at innovation. They started up the virtual hamfests.
Yes.
And believe me, that was a disaster. The
Yes.
hamfest, whenever you ask somebody about this virtual hamfest, nobody seems to know what it really was. But I'll tell you what it was. It was effectively a Microsoft Teams meeting where different vendors would come stand in front of a blue screen that usually didn't actually have any picture behind it. It was just the blue screen. And they may have a radio or two on a little stand next to them. And they talked about new products. Now, there wasn't really much new announced there. The other problem was they had constant technical difficulties.
Yes.
It kept going offline. It kept freezing up. It was bad. It was practically useless, so much so to the point now that they don't even like to mention it. If you go to their website, there's no archive of this event. There's hardly anybody who knows anything about it or was even there. But it was bad. I mean, that was their solution, was the virtual hamfest. And you heard about it about a month before it happened, and you never heard about it again because it was so bad. They could not keep up. And the funny thing is, it's not that hard to make an event like that work. Now, the concept itself, I think, is limited because what you're doing is it's just a presentation at the end of the day. It's not a hamfest. And to call it a hamfest is just getting people's hopes up for nothing. You're not going to be able to. They did say you would be able to buy stuff from the vendors there, but I don't remember if that worked or not. I don't think anybody really took advantage of that. At the end of the day, it was just a presentation with extra steps. You had to pay to attend. That was the other thing. I don't remember what the fee was, but it wasn't free.
For people already paying $50 or $60, and then you want them to pay to go to this thing.
Yeah, that's not going to work. And I've seen videos and screenshots from this event, and it was just, it looked like a club meeting on the Zoom side.
Right.
People with ceiling fans spinning in the background talking about their new products.
And it wasn't just them. There was QSO today that tried to do a virtual hamfest, and I think it's still going on. And I'll give them credit. They came out every year and did a much better production each year. It got better each year. The first year was just as bad as ARRL. I'll never understand how someone's going to be a speaker at an event from their home. And it just was too much to move that pile of laundry. It was just too much. And stuff like that just drives me nuts. It's just little things,
Low production quality.
Low production quality. Let's think of all the different things we can do to make this just a little bit better. We're talking thousands of people watching. And so, yeah, that was crazy. And where what they should have been doing was supporting it state by state and saying, look, Florida, your state's been completely open for a year now. There's no reason why we shouldn't be having hamfest down there. If people don't want to come, they don't have to come.
Well, this is also something else that reflects poorly on amateurs themselves because they felt like they needed the ARRL's permission to have a hamfest. And the reality is you don't need any of that. Just put on the event. If locally you feel like you can't do it safely, that's up to you. But at the end of the day, the ARRL was putting out notices and things and saying you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
And at the very, very beginning of COVID, that was understandable because we didn't know what it was like. We didn't know how it behaved. It was scaring everybody. But as time went on, we realized how it worked and how you could deal with it. But they still insisted on playing it ultra safe. And partially you can understand that mindset because a lot of their people are definitely in the immunocompromised demographic. There's no getting around that. But hams at the end of the day should have stood up to just said, we're going to put it on either way.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
And that's another instance of people putting way too much stock in the ARRL's influence in the world of ham radio.
And that because their influence is great, but yet their judgment is not, it ends up being very bad for ham radio as a whole. Oh, forward thinking. I'm gonna bring up another one that gets me. They are always so many years behind when it comes to the internet and social media and things like that. Now, we've talked about their website, so we'll leave that alone. We've already taken care of that. But I want to mention the fact that, like on YouTube, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but also Facebook and things like that, Twitter, X, whatever. They have literally taken an approach to social media like, I'm old and I don't like that. That's literally the approach that they've taken to social media, which makes perfect sense, I guess. But I'm just very surprised that an organization that will sit there and tell you about how they innovate, and they're out there trying to do everything to stay ahead of this technological curve, and yet treat all the like social media like that. I couldn't believe that they never really embraced social media or social internet broadcasting, and we did talk about a little bit of that earlier. But all right, the next thing, activism. Joseph, do you really think that the ARRL's activism has been helping us out lately?
No, they tried. Let's see, the most recent opportunity they had was to keep the FCC from reallocating a certain portion of the it was either the 2 gigahertz or 1 gigahertz band. It was like 33 centimeters, or I'm sure that's wrong, but the idea is the same.
No, actually, I have that. It's 3 gigahertz.
3 gigahertz?
We lost a bunch of spectrum in 3 gigahertz.
Yeah, so we lost spectrum in 3 gigahertz, and the whole time the ARRL was saying, "Don't worry, we're going to bat for you. Don't worry, we're gonna tell them how it didn't. Nothing came of it. At the end of the day, we lost the spectrum, and it's not a huge loss because use it or lose it. Nobody was using it, so we lost it. That's pretty logical, I guess. But they don't have power anymore. The world in general sees them as a bunch of losers because they have no teeth. They have no push.
Right.
And they're running out of money too to effectively lobby for stuff. So their usefulness as far as activism goes it's completely done, in my opinion. They are not able to affect legislature anymore. They were barely able to affect the recent changes to the law where you couldn't use a radio in your car. What state was that?
Pennsylvania,
where you couldn't have a radio in your car.
We don't know how much the ARRL.
I don't believe they had a lot to do. I don't believe they had a lot to do with
the activism. Was a lot of the local teams there and stuff doing a lot of activism.
It was, and just general pushback from all hams everywhere. I don't believe the
even
ARRL
our video.
Really,
that's one of our most viewed videos. I mean, a lot of people had interest in that.
I may be wrong, but I don't recall them putting out any kind of notice about this at all.
Yeah,
I don't think they said anything about it.
That's something that should have been put out.
That's something that they should have been.
All members, help us with this. Write a letter.
They should have swarmed on that immediately.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree.
That should have been big news for them.
I agree.
But
I'm sure they sent that one guy they send up there to go talk to some people, some lobbyists. Here's a card. Take them to a steakhouse. See if you can get this vote. And then, the $35 charge now for licenses. They couldn't do anything about that.
Nope, couldn't do anything about that.
And then when they're asked, hey, what's with the $35 now? You know what their answer is? At least it ain't $75. Whatever, dude. Okay, so your goal is to not lose is bad.
You know what's funny? And this sort of ties back to the whole GMRS thing. The fee for a GMRS license, I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe it was reduced down to $35. So effectively, we had the prices were like this with GMRS being up here, and now they've evened out and they're in the middle.
Right.
They couldn't have done anything against that. They tried. It didn't work. They said at least it wasn't $75. I don't believe that they had any positive influence at all in that decision making.
Yep. I don't, and the number one argument people will give you when you tell somebody you pay ARRL, you give them your money that you work for. I mean, I literally get that look on my face. You give them money, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, why? And the number one thing, dude, they fight for our bandwidth.
Not anymore.
Really?
And if
They
you
don't
can
fight
call
for
it
crap,
fighting,
dude.
it's not fighting anymore. It's just
They've got a
that
lobby
same
guy that
guy,
they
like you
send up
said,
there.
that lobby guy comes up there and he walks in the room and everyone's like, oh, here's Bob from ARRL
Oh
again.
God,
Everybody
here we
watch
go.
what you say. Here we go.
Yes,
You know,
Bob, we won't
there's
do
no
it.
respect there anymore. They have
No.
no respect. And that's a big part of being able to enact change is respect. And nobody has respect for the ARRL. Not the members and not the people who need to be influenced by them.
And what's
That's
funny
because
is
they haven't innovated and they're dying.
there's this weird thing, and I wanted to talk to you a minute about this, and then we're going to get into their salaries because that's a big one I want to get into next. But one of the things that gets me about ham radio is the fact that nobody likes to badmouth ham radio. Nobody likes to say, look, this is bullshit. It shouldn't be this way. Nobody likes to say, why is all these ham radio clubs so corrupt? Why is the ARRL so ineffective, yet everybody still pays them? I'm going to tell you why. Because amateurs have lost the ability somehow in this club, in this hobby, I should say. We've lost the ability to literally get up and stand up and say, that's bull crap and I'm not going to take it anymore. They've lost that ability. I listen to people, oh, the ARRL is good. Those people should be just as pissed as I am. They should understand. They're smart people. People at ham radio are some of the smarter people in our society. Why can these people not understand that you're wasting your money giving it to people who are pissing it away? And I don't know if I'll ever quite understand the logic there. All right. And then of course their salaries. This is probably the part where I just throw the papers up in the air, turn around, and you see me leaving. I looked up their salaries. Do you know that over 50% of what you pay, that $59, $30, over $30 of that money that you pay goes directly to monetary compensation or benefits packages. Okay? 2 years ago, I don't have last year's numbers in front of me. 2 years ago, they spent $234,306 on salaries. Let me say that again. $7.2 million on salaries. The president makes over $200,000 a year. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is supposed to be a club that's by people that love it, for people that love it. You don't have to love anything to make $200,000 to do it well. I just don't understand that logic at all. When you start paying everybody big salaries, the quality goes down, the money you need goes up, and it ends up ruining everything. And that's what's going on here. Between 51 and 54% of their budget in 2001 went to salaries. Do you believe that?
That's wild. And for what are they doing? That just brings me back to the question again. I could understand if this was a big conglomerate, if it was a big, it's hard to even put into words because they're not a company that makes products. They're not, ICOM. They're not Yaesu. They're not putting a product out. And you never really hear of them doing anything besides running Logbook of the World. And what are they paying these people to do? They don't do anything. I mean,
they're
I'm sure
not
they
even
do.
doing anything to
They
get youth
feel like
involved
they're
anymore.
doing. No, that's another thing which I have some insight on. They are
Let's
not
do it.
doing anything at all that could be considered worthwhile. Now, I'm sure they feel like they're performing a crucial service here.
I'm sure they do.
But I'm sure they got great justifications for it. But they're not doing anything to innovate. They're not doing anything, period. So that's just a waste of money. I think they need to stop that right now. Either way, they're going to have to stop because their numbers are so bad. They're losing money. They're going to be bankrupt. As a company that's not even, a huge profit maker, they're going to be bankrupt. And they're going to go. And as far as innovating for young people, I got my license when I was 12 years old. I'm 20 years old now. I never heard of one single thing about the ARRL that got me interested. I've had so many people try and coerce me into signing up. Even at the Huntsville Hamfest, they had a table there for the ARRL. and there was like 3 or 4 people that were like trying to get me to go pay the $59 that it was there to become a member. And none of them could tell me what I would get out of it besides being a member. I couldn't get anything out of it. You walk over there, they don't provide anything.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as them doing stuff for young people, last year, Huntsville Hamfest 2023, I walked up to, it was either the president or someone else. I don't remember his name or much about him, but there was somebody there. I believe the president was there, or CEO, whatever he's called. And we asked him, what are you doing to get youth involved? Me and my younger brother were there, staying there. And they told me, they said, we're working on an online webinar that we're really excited about.
Welcome to 1999.
I mean, if these are the tier of ideas they're coming up with.
They even use the old words. It's a webinar.
And I went online looking for info about this. I couldn't find anything about it.
Because they're still working on it. Give another $7 million. They'll get it pumped out.
Maybe so. But I mean, they're just done. They're so far gone at this point. If I could just speak frankly, I think they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone in a matter of 5 or 6 years. They're going to be bankrupt. Hopefully sooner than that. Honestly, as a young person, ham radio, who just sees so much stuff keeping us back, so much stuff just clawing, dragging us back into the past, I'm actually kind of glad to see them having trouble, because they represent so much of what's wrong with ham radio, in my opinion, as a young ham. They represent everything that is this lackadaisical, spineless sort of maybe it'll get better, just this lazy mindset of, this is how we've always done it, and things will pick up here, hopefully. They're holding radio back. They're holding the ham radio as a hobby is more than just a hobby. It's a community of people who all share a mindset. And that mindset is affected by stuff like the ARRL, stuff like the big companies that produce equipment for us, like MFJ just went out of business. That's something that sort of people have on their minds, and it sort of affects how they think and feel about just the whole world of radio. And the ARRL is a big part of that. People put too much stock in their opinion. And as a result, it's keeping us in the past. It's keeping us from innovating. I mean, the ARRL hates me. All right. The ARRL, whoever's in charge there, is aware of my existence on a personal level, not because I'm friends with them, but because they hate the way I operate so much that they had to make a fuss about it. When we were at Huntsville Hamfest 2022, and we were across from their table, we didn't bother them. We didn't talk to them. The guy actually tried to get me to become youth section coordinator for my local area. I turned him down because his ideas were horrible. That's another thing. But they hated me so much that they raised a fuss about it and said, don't put us across from him again. I am the only one there who got youth grouped together, united, and got them on the air having fun. I was the only one. There's proof on YouTube of the Zoom recording of just a crowd of people all in their young 20s, late teens on the radio. Some of them were buying. One of the guys there bought equipment and stuff and got set up. He was not a ham. He just came with a friend because the friend told him to come along. And he said, you know what? I've had so much fun today that I'm going to get into this. And he bought himself a radio. He said he's getting his license next week. That was because of what we did. And as much as
more people than they did.
We recruited more people than the ARRL could.
Yeah.
And they hated us. They should have been walking over to us and saying, what is your secret? What can we learn from you? If they were truly open-minded and not stubborn, they would have come over and asked me, what are you doing? I talked to the section coordinator. He wanted me to become the youth section coordinator. And I said, well, what exactly do you have in mind as far as getting younger people into the hobby? Because I'd already proven I was successful with it. And I said, what do you have in mind? And he listed out some ideas that were just, I don't know what university would have worked in, but certainly not ours. I'm talking about classroom presentations, outreach to schools, stuff like that.
Nothing turns kids on like more classroom time.
None of that works. And you know why? I've been around those situations before. The people that are there don't want to be there. The whole time the guy is on the stage talking about his little satellite antenna, they're just like, they're counting down the seconds to get out of there. But what got them interested was having fun on the air. And the ARRL is the biggest thorn in the foot of everyone who wants to have fun on the air. Because again, this also harks back to hams giving them too much credit and too much power. They're not a governing body, but they act like they are. And
Yes,
hams like to act like they are. They're not. Same for the hamfests, same for frequency coordination, same for the gentleman's agreement, all this stuff. They are not a governing body. They have no power, and they're dragging us back as best they can. This whole situation would be solved if all the hams just said, "See ya, bye."
Yep.
Let them die. Let them figure out what they're going to do with themselves. But they're keeping us back, and they don't care about innovation. So I say let them die. As harsh as that sounds, there's so much history. They used to do good stuff for us. They used to be really involved. They used to be the pinnacle. Everybody had the ARRL sticker on their car.
Yep.
Everybody had it. It was great. I'm a proud member of the ARRL. Not anymore, man. Because the people running it have refused to innovate. And as much as it sucks, they're on their way out. And I say let it happen.
And I want to mention one last thing, and I completely agree with you on that point. I think that if they failed and went away, it would be a positive.
It would be a wake-up call
for ham radio. It would be a net gain, and I think we would be better off the day after it happened. I absolutely believe that. I want to end off here with just a couple of things at the end. I want to talk about ARIES for just a minute. I joined the local ARIES team here. It was a joke.
Sorry.
You're fine, babe. Just take a second. I want to take a few minutes to talk about ARIES, because ARIES is something that a lot of people, when they get into ham radio, will say, I want to get into ARIES. I want to be a part of ARIES. And what ARIES is, for anybody that's watching that's not sure, ARIES is basically the emergency services side of ham radio. But here's the problem. It's completely taken over and run by the ARRL. And they decide who your coordinator for each county is going to be. And you have no say in it. We've had several here that just don't seem to get things done. I was on the team. I had completed everything in my task book for level 3. I had went to all the FEMA classes, went to the Skywarn classes. I went to every class you had to take. I completed the skills. I had everything done that you had to do for level 3. And I handed them my task book to sign off, and they kept it for 6 months. And I kept asking and asking and asking, why can't I get my task book back? I want to go on emergencies. I want to be available. I'm formerly used to work with emergency management. I'm a retired firefighter. I wanted to get involved in ARIES. And what I found out was it's a joke. We had the biggest hurricane here, a Cat 5, Hurricane Ian, and our ARIES team was basically not needed. None of the teams were really used. It's basically just so that we can continue. The ARRL uses ARIES to be able to wield power and say, look, we need to be able to keep these antennas, and we need to be able to do this and do that. But the truth is, most of the counties are not even really using ARIES much anymore. We do have a radio room here in this county, but some of the counties don't even have a ham radio room anymore, because the systems we have now are hardened. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. We're on 800, 900, 1200 megahertz radio systems out here, and they're hardened. And these systems survive right through the storm. You drive down to Fort Myers Beach the day after the storm, and the cops are all talking on the radio. No problem. Because we're at a point now where it's not that big a deal. And unless there's a big solar blackout, a solar storm, or an EMP pulse attack or something like that, where we're going to have to go back to conventional radio and analog radio, there's just not going to be a need for ARIES. It's kind of like the thing that's not needed anymore, but yet it still exists. Why? Because they use ARIES as the reason to exist. We exist for emergency services. Truth is, they're a tertiary service that's hardly used anywhere anymore. I left my team here because I couldn't even get my task book signed off. And when I asked them why they wouldn't, and when they finally gave me back my task book, It was signed off for level 1. They would never tell me why. Finally, someone called me one night and told me, do you want to know why your task book wasn't signed off? I'm going to tell you. And I said, please do. And he said, because the leader is only signed off to task 1. The leader of your team only has his book signed off to task 1. He's not even eligible to go out of county on a response. Your assistant leader is not qualified to sign off your task book, and no one else in your team is qualified. In 6 months, I had surpassed the qualifications of everybody on the ARIES team locally, and they refused to sign me off.
The broken system.
It's absolutely consistent with everything else you see. It's consistent with the dysfunctional NTS system, the dysfunctional ARIES groups, the dysfunctional Logbook of the world that's been down for 2 weeks, the dysfunctional learning center that's down, that's antiquated and 20-year-old looking technology. It's everything the ARRL does is old, antiquated, and it's done out of a resistance for change. Would you agree?
Yep, I 100% agree.
And I think finally, we mentioned it earlier. I actually have it in my notes too. I think it would help ham radio if the ARRL just went away. I think it would help with our counties if we could get new people in there instead of the old boys club. You know, they keep putting new people. When the gentleman that was doing our thing become 100 years old, and he was too old to continue on as our ARIES leader, there was no vote. There was no input. There was no speeches. There wasn't anything. They appointed someone new. The person that appointed them doesn't even know the people involved. It's ridiculous. And the county's not even asked. You would think the county would have some say in who the ARIES coordinator would be that's going to work in the EOC and have a key card to the EOC. You would think that person would be vetted, right? It's crazy. And it's a waste. Everything's such a waste. All right. Well, can you think of anything else we've missed?
No, I think that about covers it. I made my thoughts clear on it.
Yeah. Well, we didn't mince words. That's sure. We really said it just like it is tonight. But I wanted to do that. And I know I'm going to get a lot of negative input. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are upset at me because of the comments I said on here or you. And I don't care, okay? I really don't. My channel is 95% positive content. But if I sit there every day and don't say something about a travesty like this, it will just continue. We have to say something about this. These other ham radio providers on YouTube, some of you guys, man, you guys you carry their water for them. They're a mess.
Stop
Say
defending
they're
them.
a mess. Quit covering for them. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Stop. I said stop defending them. They don't need to be defended. They need to just be let go at this point. But that you don't have to deny their past importance to say that they've outlived their usefulness.
Look, everything has a period of usefulness. The space shuttle we thought was the neatest thing ever. Had its last day in space. No matter what we do, no matter what we try, no matter what we achieve, everything comes to the end of its usefulness. And I believe that we have come to the end of the ARRL's usefulness.
I believe so. Yeah.
And give us a comment. Let us know how you feel. Please keep it civil. I do respond to comments. And, let us know what you think. I know I have a funny feeling that my comments will be immediately spammed by 100,000 people that are all telling me how the ARRL is great and I'm completely wrong. That's your opinion. I'm happy to hear it. I don't really care. I've been in this long enough to know my opinion, and it's valid. And so is Joseph's, and yours is as well. So let's all have our opinion. Let's be civil about the Discord, even though we're not really on Discord. And let's talk about it. And then hopefully let's find a way to move amateur radio forward without being held back by the ARRL. Joseph, any final remarks?
No, I think that about did it. I just think as easy as it'll be to just get mad about what we're saying here, just try and think and understand. We may have worded some things pretty harshly, but the general sentiment I think is worth considering, even if you're still a diehard fan of the ARRL. Really stop and think, what are they doing for you, the amateur? What tangible difference are they making in your experience through the hobby? And just try and think about that. And if you can think about something that's legitimate and that's helpful and good, definitely let us know, because I'm all ears. I want to hear it. But as far as my experience has gone, you've heard what I've had to say.
Couldn't say it better myself. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. My name's Ian. I'm here with Joseph. This is Starship Adventures. Please visit Joseph's channel at Scuffed Radio. That's YouTube at Scuffed Radio. He's got some great content there for ham radio. His content is almost exclusively ham radio stuff, and it's really good. A lot of on-scene, a lot of hands-on, a lot of tower climbing, and all kinds of good stuff going on over there. So check out his channel. That's at Scuffed Radio, and we'll have that in the description for you also. And you can check out my wife at Carlotta Alana. And we'll see you guys on our next video. Again, my name's Ian. This is Joseph, and you've been listening to Starship Adventures here on YouTube. Have a good one.